The one thing I love about having kids is that they're the reminder to myself to treat myself better, because I want the best for them. So I can't have them seeing me treat myself like shit.
Yeah, because you're the example.
Yeah, I don't want to see them doing that to themselves.
Let's get into a little bit about who you are and your story, and the things that we were talking about on the phone a few days ago, so that people watching this can understand how you've gotten to this wonderful, beautiful place.
Exactly. I married my college boyfriend, I guess, and so we were kids when we met. We were basically kids when we got married, and we had 4 kids together, 4 daughters, and we're married for over 18 years. Mainly the last 5-6 years, it's been, getting increasingly more violent. It had been getting way more abusive on an emotional level, playing this, picturesque, perfect, social media. So everybody kind of emulated us and put us on a pedestal that was, to me, a little impossible to maintain and keep. And my children are amazing, so I never really had to struggle with that, but just trying to maintain the face that we're a happy couple. But in their eyes, because I never said what was really happening, they never knew. That's what broke my heart, is that you could do this to me in front of our daughters. Do you know how much damage that does for generations?
Traumatic, yep.
That will not be easily healed just because you can't hold your tongue. And I was about to turn 40 at that time, and I kind of channeled in my ancestors. My grandmother that had just passed, she was 97. She had 13 kids, was married when she was 16. Basically every year that she could have a child, she had to have a child because of Catholicism, and there just is no divorce. You can't leave. People would have 2nd and 3rd families, but they would never get divorced. And the women before her, same story, over and over and over again. Every woman in my lineage has had to do this, never had a chance or an opportunity or the right to leave. And I felt sitting on my shoulders, all of those women looking at me now going, you are finally of the generation that can leave, but I can't sacrifice my life. Literally, I could feel my grandmother, her sisters, their mothers, I could feel them around me, talking to me at different times, yelling at me sometimes. How could I stay? They sacrificed their lives so that eventually I wouldn't have to. He had no kind of filter to not hurt me in front of our girls, or not hurt me because I was pregnant, or, all of these things. Nothing would stop him. Not only was my soul life and my emotional life at stake of dying, I probably physically would not have survived his rage had I been in lockdown and in quarantine with him. My gut instinct was, I can't stay in this house in lockdown with this person. It kind of culminated with me calling the police on him, and which was a huge thing. And in the middle of COVID, it was hard because the police stations were closed. I had to go to 2 different police stations at 2 different times. I had to disrobe in their bathroom so they could take pictures of my bruises and stuff. They spent probably 8 or 9 hours with me, interviewing me about my story. And I was just trying to make a report so that I could get some type of protection. Okay, they're going to serve it to him. That evening, when they went over there, they went with their captain, and somehow, some way, when their captain interviewed him, he was able to convince the captain that he was the one being abused. In the whole incident, I had in trying to defend myself from being pushed backwards down the stairs. And I'm pregnant at this time. And he's kicking me, and he's trying to kick me down the stairs out the garage. I was flailing my arms and legs to try and not fall backwards downstairs. And I must have hit his lip or something. But anyways, his little bloody lip that he had, because he was trying to throw my legs over my head, versus all the bruises all over my body that they had, like, you know, degraded me and took pictures of me. And his one little bloody lip and his statement got them to dismiss my EPO, which was already approved by two, you know, like by the judge and by the chief of police. But this captain thought it was in her right to just say, no, this is no longer valid, and then put cuffs on me and send me to jail because they believed him over me. In the middle of COVID, I was cuffed and brought to jail because I finally had the courage to report domestic violence of my marriage of over 18 years. I finally got that courage. And that's how it went down for me, is these officers that had spent, like, you know, the whole day with me, they get an hour maybe with my husband, and he's able to convince them that he's the victim and I'm the abuser, and I'm the one that ends up in cuffs in jail, pregnant, with bruises all over my body. And all of this had to happen in front of my children. The system is so messed up. I was like, oh, one of the reasons I went at this time is because, you know, all the other times, it's hard to find bruises. You know, somebody tries to throw scissors at you and you duck and those scissors hit the TV instead of hitting you. You don't really have much evidence to go at that time. When I had bruises and I'm pregnant and I finally go. It took me 18 years to get the courage to go and tell anybody. They put me in jail. So as I'm riding in the cop car, I'm just more concerned about COVID. Like, what did I do to deserve this? But get beat up and try to get protected from getting beat up. You know, these officers that were then taking me to get booked in jail, I was just asking them, like, what happened? Like, I had just spent the past 8-9 hours with these officers, telling them, like, inside and out my whole life story. And they were shaking their heads. They couldn't say anything because it was just their captain. The one officer, because I'm pregnant and I had to pee a lot, but with cuffs on, once I was in the cell, I was like, I can't even use the restroom. So I had to have an officer come down and pull my pants down so I could, pee. This is the thing that, so many people talk about and are scared of, is that, like, you can't be a victim. You have to be, like, dead. And even then, you're not really a victim yet. Like, it's nearly impossible for survivors of domestic violence to get any type of help in the public sense. You got to just have your gang of folks that's there to be down for you if he ever does that again, because it's trying to get the authorities to see the scope of what domestic violence includes, because it includes so much more than just these bruises. Mm-hmm. So much more. I mean, the fact that I couldn't say anything for all this time meant that my mind was has been programmed to cover up, hide, appease, just make sure that he was okay. His false accusation requiring a temporary restraining order against me, which put one against my children. So he basically was claiming that I was an abuser and that I was a threat to my children. And that was the time period where he took me away from my kids. I missed all of their birthdays. It's been the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life, has been this rebuilding process, because I was broken to pieces. And I was really lost in not knowing what my voice was anymore. That was the hardest part, is just him thinking like he never did anything wrong.
Yeah.
Like even after that, like he still felt like he never did anything wrong. Like sending me to jail, he still never thought he did anything wrong, you know, making his kids witness what they had to witness. So I just hope that, you know, that piece of paper and my restraining order and him accepting those terms means that he accepts that that's punishment for him doing things wrong.
Part of it is the way that the laws are written. And unfortunately, they have to go by the book. They do. And there are very few who have the courage to go above and beyond and ask real questions and really get to the bottom of it. Most of them just go by the book and do what they're told and do what, you know, is on paper.
I think it's such a false advertising, like, you know, they should get sued for false advertising to protect and serve.
Who?
Like themselves? Yes.
Basically themselves.
Absolutely. I think they do that really well with themselves. It's hard because I have daughters. And so I have 5 daughters now. And so I think about that all the time.
Like people like us, it takes a lot of courage to be able to reach out for help. It takes a long time to reach out for help. How bad it is and how deep it goes is just being exposed now.
Yeah.
So,
barely. Yeah. 0 words for so long to describe what I was going through.
And that's a testament to how impactful and destructive the psychological abuse is, the manipulation and the gaslighting and the crazy making and the reality twisting.
I didn't even understand what gaslighting was until I think I learned about it at the end of last year, and I was like, oh, my whole life.
It's so
gaslit. Like, I didn't realize there was gaslighters. Like,
who even knew that was a word, a thing?
But once I was able to name it and name all of the things that go on in domestic violence and abuse, and, you know, the emotional factor, the psychological, all of that, narcissism, and actually have definitions for those things, I felt like I could exist outside of those things, because until I was able to put the words to what it was I was going through, I just felt like everything was a mess.
Yeah.
Identify one thing, I was just,
yeah.
But as I'm learning the vocabulary, as I'm learning the science, everything, the biology behind all of everything that has been happening, and it's made me feel less crazy, made me feel less like I'm losing my mind, less stupid, less weak. It's empowering to learn those things, because you're not an oddity, you know? For me personally, I've been able to take it as a time to just have time, you know? The fact that I was losing myself and my soul and my spirit was a big deal. I had to value myself more, not only for my girls, but for myself and for all those shoulders that I'm standing on, just to be where I am now. Like, I think about my grandmother and her giving birth to 13 kids in the middle of the jungle, no electricity, not even a running toilet. And she survived and thrived and made it. And there's no reason for me not to survive and thrive and make it. I feel it in my blood. I feel it in my DNA. I feel like every part of me is here because of them. I was the firstborn in this country, and I didn't meet a lot of my relatives until I was an adult, but I had dreams about them. I had, you know, I had pictures. I had the one picture of the family picture, and, like, you know, we would talk on the phone and stuff, but I did reports about, like, my grandfather being in World War II, and I had interviewed so many people in our family just because I wanted to connect so much. And I think doing that put my soul and my spirit in touch with all the stories that came before me that got me to be the firstborn in America. After her death and after me reconnecting with her, I realized that she wouldn't want me to stay in it just because of Catholicism. Like, yeah, she just had to because she had to during the time that she lived. Took a lot of that. That is when I went into my brain to get consensus from everybody in my brain that that actively breaking the cycle was what I had to do for the sake of my daughters and their sons, and that this can't continue. I appreciate everything for what it's worth, getting me to where I am now.
Well, you've been an extraordinary example for other survivors and for your daughters.
Thank you. It makes it all worth it. You see? As hard as it may appear to be, if your soul is telling you to, if you feel like you need to, just do it.
Yep.
And it's not going to be easy. It's never too late. It's never too late.